Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming up. There's 46 people we're here now and counting. Very pleased with Natasha and Dicken for the availability tonight for the first webinar from the Dutch global community. Dutch speaking, let's call it that way. I think it's the best way to appoint that.
Yeah.
You had an idea of how to proceed tonight already, and well, feel free. Hit the floor.
Yeah, that's one thing about when you enjoy being open to new and fresh ideas. It never seems like you're at a lack for possible things to talk about. But hopefully we'll try and leave time at the end so that people can share what they're hearing or ask any questions they want. But I want to really thank you and the Dutch community for inviting us to come and talk with you. Today. I don't know. I got interested in suffering other than my own. In my first job, I started teaching high school students. And I was really young. I looked younger than my high school students. And I had so many students coming to talk to me about their problems, their difficulties, their challenges, their suffering. And it ignited this passion in me to learn what I could, that people, to find out what we can all learn that will reduce suffering. Now, what do I mean by suffering? I mean, just being anxious a lot, like I was. It's not pleasant to be anxious a lot when you're growing up. It made it hard for me to be comfortable in my own skin, especially when I was around other people. I think it's hard if you get stuck in low moods and you feel down or depressed for extended periods of time. 5 or 10 minutes, no problem. A day starts to be difficult. 2 days, a week starts to really be difficult. I think everybody in the world is looking for peace of mind. I mean, they interviewed top business executives, 600 CEOs of companies. And they said, what do you most want in your life? Most of anything. You know what the number one answer was? Peace of mind. Right? These are very successful people. And they say, I don't have peace of mind. I'd love to have peace of mind. Everybody, the Dalai Lama says every human being, we're all the same. We all want to be happy. Everybody in the world, no one enjoys being unhappy and miserable or stressed or anxious or worried or uptight or always serious. And certainly, everybody loves the experience of love. Everybody would like to have more love in their life and in their relationships. So, what are we taught as we grow up? The outside world is the source of your suffering. that person made you upset. Having lots of work is stressing you out. The traffic is making you feel bad. The weather is making you feel down. And we're told innocently the prevailing psychological paradigm that the outside world has the power somehow to create unhappiness within you. A relationship, how you were raised, your parents, your biology, your genetics, your nationality, your culture, your religion, the politics around you, the people around you, the situations you find yourself in cause unhappiness. Now, listen, I've traveled the world and I've asked thousands of people, what are you feeling? And you get a full range because we're built to have feelings. I have a full range of feelings. What are you feeling? And you hear, where do you think that feeling is coming from? And everybody will point towards something in the physical world. And it's innocent. It's very innocent. Now, what about happiness? What are we told about happiness as we grow up? Well, if you have these things, you'll be happy. If you have wealth, if you have good relationships, if you have a family, if you are married, if you have the ability to go on vacation, then those things will make you happy. So when I ask people, where do you think your feeling comes from? If people feel stressed, they'll point towards something in the world. If they feel happy, they'll say, well, because of something in the world. Now, I taught high school for 6 years, and this quest for learning what to share with people that would help them have less suffering got stronger and stronger. So I went and got my master's degree, and then I got my doctorate degree during that time. And I became a psychologist, and I left teaching to try and help people with their suffering. But I too was living in a psychological paradigm that says the outside world creates your experience. And then after 10 years of working as a psychologist, which I loved because I love people and I love trying to help people. But it's very hard when it feels like each person feels like they're a victim of life. Life causes my unhappiness, and life, I have to find something in life that will make me happy. That still is the predominant paradigm in the world. You can just ask anybody, where do you think your feelings come from? You'll hear all the theories people have had. And then I met a very interesting man. He wasn't even in the field of psychology. He had a 9th grade education. He wasn't looking for this. But he had an experience that's very rare in history. He had a spontaneous, what many people would call spontaneous enlightenment experience. One day he was talking to his wife and mother-in-law. This man's name is Sidney Banks. And suddenly there was this buzzing field of white light in front of him, and he felt like he got drawn into this. Lost all sense of being a separate self. And there was nothing but beautiful, beautiful buzzing energy and light. And if you put a name on the experience, it was the most exquisite feeling he had ever experienced in his whole life, but it was just that feeling. So there was this infinite sense of space and feeling and a knowing that's indescribable. And he said it probably only was about 4 or 5 seconds. And then he comes back into his sense of body and self, separate self. And he had tears in his eyes. And he turned to his wife and he says, I'm free. I've come home. I've transcended the boundaries of time, space, and matter. I've experienced the absolute oneness of life. We're all part of a field of life energy. I said to him one time, did you have a near-death experience, Sid? That's what a lot of people write about. There's lots of books written about people who have had near-death experiences. He said, no, I didn't go partway into that light and then come back. I went all the way through to the other side, to the absolute oneness of life. Well, this experience changed his life. He went from being a welder with a 9th grade education to suddenly being invited to speak at universities and speak to auditorium full of engineers and doctors and business executives, and suddenly he's writing books. Now this message is spreading worldwide. I can't think of a country that doesn't have 3 principles practitioners in it. I've traveled the world, so has Natasha, sharing and teaching this message. It's very uplifting. So what did Sid discover? Very simply, he said, your feelings don't come from outside. None of them. They're being created by this life force. This field of formless energy generates moment to moment our experience. It's the power source that's living us right at this moment. It's constantly generating mental activity in your head. So if a sad thought is generated, you'll feel sad. If an angry thought is generated, you'll feel angry. It's being created by the power of thought. If you're happy, it's being created by the power of thought. Things in the physical world don't have the power to create. A person can't create feelings in you. A car, traffic can't create a feeling in you. It's being created by the power of thought. And that all of us, all of us deep inside, as our minds get quiet, every single human being will access feelings of well-being, peace of mind, sense of aliveness and enjoyment, and the feeling of being connected to people, which is love. I've seen no exceptions to this. And I've had opportunity to train top business executives in the United States. I've gone into prisons and shared this with people in prison. I've worked with people in all different walks of life, all different cultures, all different religions, and all human beings think, are aware, and have a mind that's far greater than we had imagined. 3 principles, 3 fundamental truths. The very essence of life, our essence, is spiritual, is formless, is energy. Now, all the scientists are agreeing on this. This is very scientific. And if we had more time, I'd go into how this is being true in physics and in biology and in astronomy and in all these biology, all these different sciences are coming to the beginning to see that there is a source energy in life, generating life, creating life, operating life, that has an intelligence built into it because it knows how to create and operate what's being created. So Sid Banks realized for himself that deep inside his soul, the quiet of his being, were boundless feelings of well-being and a knowing that's not of the intellect. Now, throughout the centuries, there have been people who have touched this space, had glimpses that describe that intelligence as wisdom. And that when the intellect is led by wisdom, we have a balance between intellect and wisdom that allows a person to have a beautiful, beautiful, healthy life. And I have seen people go from states of extreme suffering to living at levels of well-being they didn't even know were possible. And that's the beauty of this teaching and understanding. It says every one of us already have everything we need to live a beautiful life full of love and happiness and peace of mind and creativity and inspiration. It's built into us already. It just gets covered over when we get caught up in our thinking. And when we realize that and release that thinking, this light of love and wisdom shines through us naturally. So this is creating a new paradigm for understanding the foundation of psychological experience. So some of us call it an inside-out paradigm as opposed to an outside-in. The world makes you feel this way. No, the creative energies are creating perfectly in every moment your experience. And if we don't know that, we're going to continue to feel like we're the victims of circumstance. Life is doing it to us, rather than we're being lived in a creative way. And when we get quiet and see the benefit of that, we'll anybody can access feelings of well-being and all the common sense you need to navigate all the difficulties and challenges that come your way in life. So let me turn this over to my good friend and fellow intrepid explorer of the inner world of infinite possibilities and love.
Thank you. This is such a practical understanding, and it's very ordinary. We're all living in the possibility to have insights. Very often I hear people speaking about insights and being very trapped or very caught up in what is the insight, what is the content. But I've been much more curious lately about living in the possibility of insights, that we can all have that. What is an insight? It's a sight from within. It's seeing something that can create a new way of seeing the world. This morning I was driving, I had to take my car to service in the next town, and I was driving. It's about 7:30 and the sun was coming up. I live out in the countryside. I was driving along and I wanted to put my sunglasses on because the sun was bright. But I thought, no, I want to see this because the colors were purple, orange, yellow. There was some mist coming up from the fields, covering the trees, you could see the contours of the trees. It was so beautiful.
Mhm.
Do you know this feeling and do you know this saying, I was blown away? Now notice that when Dicken was speaking about Sydney Banks' enlightenment experience, he said all sense of self disappeared. Well, in those moments, I bet you know this for yourself. There's certain moments where all sense of self disappears. Now, something happened in those couple of seconds. It might have been 1 second, too, but there's this sense of just Natasha was gone. And all there was this beautiful, beautiful feeling. Something was driving the car, fortunately, because it wasn't me. Now, we want to point you towards this space that's always there. I mean, this is ordinary. I also love this time of the year, that everything, the colors are changing, it's beautiful colors. But this sense of losing all sense of self is something that's available to us. Now, what does it mean? It means that I'm falling out of my conceptual mind, the running inner dialogue. There's, for most people, constantly going on, chatting, commenting, analyzing. And as Dicken started to say, we all just want to be happy. We all want peace of mind. We all just want to feel okay. But we've been looking in the wrong direction for feeling okay, for feeling happy, for having peace of mind. We think that when I achieve such and such, then I will get it. Have you noticed it doesn't happen? Even if you get that job that you wanted or the partner that you wanted, you're happy for a moment, but then it starts again. Now you want the next house or the next car or the next job or a pay raise or something. So it feels like you're running on this hamster wheel. Doesn't get anywhere. But no one has told us you can actually step one step to the side and not be caught up in the hamster wheel. Now, the metaphor is that there is a space where the inner dialogue, it can still be going, but something is seeing it. You start noticing that there's a space inside that's not caught up in the thinking. It's always here. You start to pay attention to, or you could become curious about, what is it that notices the narrative? What is it that's aware of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're paying attention to? Now that curiosity leads to new thought. Like right this moment, you're here, now, right now. Just staying in this moment. Everything you need is here. When we fall out of our personal thinking, that moment that I had this morning driving to work, and this happens both for me and Dicken and for you too, I bet it does when you're in nature or playing with your kids or with your puppy or riding a horse or playing golf. There's moments where we lose all sense of self. And there's a freshness to that moment. There's a newness because of that creative energy that Dicken was just speaking about. This life force that creates every single moment. So it's always new. Even if you have the same thought a million times, it's new each time. All the feelings that you know that I hate that feeling, I'm tired of the suffering. I've been suffering for years. Well, actually, it's being created all the time. What we're pointing towards is the source of suffering, and also where to look to be unburdened by that suffering, which is created from within. So when we fall into this space, we wanted to call this webinar Going Deeper into the Heart of Life. What is the heart of life? It's this moment, this space, this pure awareness. When we have these moments, and for us it's moments. Sid went all the way through. I've not gone anywhere through, but I've touched, tasted, smelled this space many times now, and each time it's like, oh yeah, I know this. And it becomes more and more familiar. More and more of the time, this is a place that I know to rest in, especially when I'm suffering. I know when I'm caught up that I know where to look. And if I forget, my sweet friend Dicken tells me, look within. Look to that space where there is no suffering, because there is no self who suffers there. This space inside is pure. It's free from the conceptual mind that keeps telling you what to do, or this will be bad, or oh, that's horrible, or you should definitely do something, or you need to change jobs, or leave your relationship. There's a space inside that's new, that's fresh, and when we rest there, something new comes to us. You see, in this space needs nothing from you. This space is formless. So nothing can make it better. Nothing can add to this space. Nothing can subtract from this space. There's nothing that can make this space better or worse. It's always here. And we touch it, but we don't always notice that we touch it. We just went, oh, that was a beautiful sunset, or that was a beautiful morning. But we don't ask the question, why? What happened there? What happened in that moment was that in that moment, you were free from listening to the constant babbling mind. I was speaking to a client earlier today, and he was sharing with me that about 30 years ago, he was on several workshops that were teaching about breath work and how important it is that your stomach goes in and out, and he had become so focused on it that he was constantly thinking, am I doing it right? Am I, am something going to happen? And it was so interesting because at a certain point I said, we've been speaking for 11 minutes now. Have you been paying attention to your breath? He went, no. And I went, well, why do you think that is? And you're obviously still alive, so something was breathing. And he went, well, I haven't been paying attention to it. So when we are engaged in life, things we love, things that we enjoy, being in the present moment. I love being with my grandkids. I love being out in nature. I love being in the garden. I love going for walks with Dicken or just speaking with him. There's these moments where we naturally fall into this space. Now, our job is to point that out to people. So I said to him, why do you think that is? And then I was able to help him see that there are actually many times in his life where he doesn't pay attention to his thinking about his breath. So it's available to us. It's ordinary. It's already here. It's nothing we need to work for. And all it takes is becoming curious about what it is that's always present. Because your thoughts will come and go, your feelings will come and go. Every single experience you'll ever have, that you have ever had, it came and it went. Where did it go? Where did it come from? Why did it arise from? There's a space that everything comes from within, like Dicken was saying. And so when we start becoming curious about that which doesn't come and go, that's where peace is, that's where love is, that's where fresh ideas come from. And living from this space is a whole new experience of life, because you don't see through the scratch filters of the glasses that you are wearing. You see life fresh and new in each moment, because it is fresh and new in each moment when you're not listening to the constant conceptual mind that tells you what it's seeing and tells you what it's worried about and what it needs. And so it's here already. And that's what I wanted to share with you.
It's really quite simple. Really quite simple. When we become aware of our present moment, sometimes there's tension, there's stress, you can feel it. That's good that you feel that. That's good because it's normal to have feelings like this. They are created when we're holding our thinking in place, believing it, thinking it's true, identifying with it. I am this feeling. That's who I am. I'm upset, right? The feeling lets you know that you're creating this experience by using the power of thought this way. So I'm glad when I recognize that I feel stressed or tense or upset. It lets me know that I'm caught in thought. The one human problem. Human beings get caught up in thought. They believe their thinking to be true. This is horrible. I can't do this. I don't like this. This means this. This means that. We get caught up in our thinking at times because we're human. That's normal. But the principle of thought helps us realize, oh, wait a minute, that's being created from thought. It's my thinking, and I'm holding this thinking that's keeping me feeling this way. And if you really see thought, without technique, without doing anything, we are built to let go of what we realize is causing us our own suffering, our own pain. Just like you put your hand on a hot stove, you don't need a technique to take it off. You don't have to learn 7 steps. This happens naturally. Now, it's the same when you realize my holding thought is keeping my suffering in place. There's naturally, it'll bring you right back to the now, where you're not holding. You'll drop into this space within. You're one thought away from stepping into this space of pure presence, pure thought, pure consciousness. We become more awake, more aware when we're not caught up in our thinking. The more awake and aware we are, the better we start feeling naturally. If you go for a walk in the woods and you're thinking about anything, you won't experience beauty. You wake up out of your thinking, you'll see beauty everywhere. Our senses come alive in pure consciousness. For anybody, that's where happiness comes from. Our head clears of negative thought, and this deeper feeling brings alive our senses. It's so beautiful. That's why we can enjoy our kids and our babies and our grandkids and our friends and anybody. We fall out of all thoughts into the now, where deeper feeling naturally arises and emerges. And when people are in this space of pure consciousness. This deeper intelligence of mind guides us. Without thinking about it, we know what to do. Now look at it. It happens all the time. We don't realize it, like Natasha says. In order to drive a car, you can't be caught up in your thinking, or you'll be having accidents. It's that simple. You'll have trouble just going anywhere. So you have to become rather present in order to drive a car. And then your hand is doing this on the steering wheel, and you're going very fast, and other huge cars, very heavy cars, are flying by you in the other direction. You're going like this, and without thinking about it, this deeper intelligence is helping you make life and death decisions. Now, change the situation. You're in the middle of a family crisis. You're really upset. And all of a sudden you realize you're upset. Oh my gosh, I'm holding thought. You fall open. Now your mind is open rather than closed. Now at least you're driving down the road. And right away, your feeling starts to open up and change. You're more present. It feels good to be fully present. And then without thinking about it, you know what to do, what to say, when to say something, when not to say something, when to walk out of a room, when to move towards someone. That's wisdom. It's just an intuitive knowing built into every single human being. And it's been operating our whole life without us being aware that that's what it is. As your understanding deepens, you begin to rely on and trust in this wisdom. So if you have a problem, you go, well, I can either use my little pea brain intelligence to try and figure this out, or I can set it aside and see what the universal intelligence has to say. Being caught up in our thinking and identified with it is what we call ego. When we let go of ego, or as Natasha says, when we lose all sense of self, when we let go of everything and come into the present moment, we're losing all sense of self. We're not thinking about ourselves anymore. You start thinking about yourself when you're driving a car, and pretty soon you'll be having accidents. If you're thinking about yourself while you're in nature, you won't appreciate your walk. You won't see beauty. If I'm with my wife thinking about myself like I used to all the time, I don't feel intimacy with her. I don't feel a closeness with her. And she'll say, Dicken, you're still at work. You're not here. You're not present. Hello, Dicken, are you there? Right. So it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. We have the capacity to wake up to the fact of thought, rest in the now, access deeper feeling and deeper knowing. That's the heart of all true spiritual teaching. Look within, beyond your personal thinking. There's a space of great beauty, deeper feelings. In a quiet mind, deeper feelings emerge and arise. And in those feelings, there's a knowing that's not of the intellect, but it can utilize the intellect, but it's not of the intellect. It's an intuitive knowing. It helps you drive a car. It helps you walk across a room without bumping into furniture. And it helps you deal with any situation, no matter how difficult or tragic. Sid always used to say, keep it simple. He'd say, I can't believe it. What I discovered is so incredibly simple, and it's true for everybody and available to everybody. And everybody is connected to this infinite field of intelligent, aware, wise, loving energy. Everybody, no exception. And any human being, as they quiet down, begin to be more present and more loving and more knowing. So when my daughter was 16, I said, I want you to know 3 things. Thought creates all your feelings. And that's one. And in a quiet mind, you'll find well-being. And number 3, when you find well-being, you'll know what to do. You'll have all the common sense you need to deal with any kind of problem or crisis or difficulty or challenge, or just to be able to enjoy life. Just to be able to enjoy life. Oh.
You know, earlier this year, Dicken and I did a program for Ukrainians. So we did with Marina Galan, who you hopefully will have the pleasure of listening to next month. And we spoke to people who are in a war zone, people who'd fled, people who were frightened for their life. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now is because this is very practical. This is not just about going into the forest and having beautiful feelings. This is really practical, like Dicken was saying. Because when you fall into this space, something will guide you, something will move towards something will make you turn left or turn right or walk away or handle the situation. And I have to say, it was difficult, those talks that we had. It was 5 days, 2 hours each day that we were speaking with these people. And they have guns pointed at their heads. They have their wives or daughters raped. It was tough. And they were saying, well, how can this help us now? Well, because when we are sensing our knowing, when we know what to do, that guides us. So it's practical, even in a war zone. It was, and we through the days, people were sharing back how helpful this was. That in these moments of quiet, they were able to know exactly which decisions to make. So this knowing is the gift that we have. This knowing is the same gift that wrote our book, Coming Home, that Eileen and Svea has translated into your language. This knowing that when Dicken and I stepped out of the way, knowing wrote the book. And when Dicken or Natasha came into the book and, well, I have an idea, I think we should, we both knew that that was not right. It was usually when we got tired. But we knew enough not to write that down. We knew enough to say, let's take a break. Let's go for a walk. Let's have a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit. And then at some point, always, it would be, oh, now. And we would go back and we would start writing. Natasha and Dicken would be gone. And again, there was space for this knowing to write. So it's available to us. And the beautiful thing that all of us can pay attention to, all of us can be curious about, is that when you are in this space of knowing, it feels good. You feel alive. Life feels meaningful. There's a sense of creative power. And you can use that for a ton of things. Writing, painting, playing with your kids, anything, gardening, cleaning. It doesn't matter, because it's not in what you're doing. It's the feeling of being that you're in while you're doing it. And it's available to all of us. And that's really the hopeful message that Sydney Banks taught us, and that we are so passionate about sharing with as many people as we possibly can. So we really appreciate all of you coming today and listening to us. And we want to open it up now and hear from you. What do you have? Questions, insights, anything? We love to hear from you. So please raise your digital hand and unmute yourself, and we can answer. Roger.
Yeah, it's not so much as a question, but kind of something that hit me when I was watching the news. You were talking about the Ukrainian people, and I was watching the news, and there was this woman, old woman, and she was standing in this city that was clearly struck by bombs and everything. She was giving this interview talking about how hard life was, but there was this moment where she suddenly noticed a bird, the sound of a bird, and she was admiring that sound. For it was a very short moment, but for me it was so beautiful to see that, like, that's, for me it meant like that is the ultimate example of your circumstances don't dictate your feelings, even if it's just for a short. You could see she was really getting out of this war thought, and she was opening up to, and I was even like, oh, even everything's destroyed there, but there's birds singing. Like, that's, so I just wanted to share that. That was very powerful, I think. Yeah.
That's exactly what we were speaking about. Thanks, Roger. Beautiful.
Yeah, those moments of deep presence are very helpful for people. They're uplifting. They're opening our minds to getting new and fresh ideas or thoughts that are more loving and compassionate. And it's built into us for that. So those little moments, you begin to cherish those moments. And once you know that those moments are opening into this dimension of the spiritual heart, they're opening into a dimension of deeper feeling and knowing. You don't rush to think it away. You learn to rest in those moments, and those moments begin to extend and become longer and longer. So that anytime during the day when your head clears and you start feeling good, you begin to rest in that feeling rather than immediately think it away. And as you rest deeper, you feel deeper, you go deeper. As you feel deeper and go deeper, you have an easier time of life, and you enjoy life more, and you more and more freely are guided by that wisdom. It reinforces itself. It's beautiful.
Isabel?
Natasha, when you spoke of how practical and ordinary this is, so helpful in every day to day. And then Dicken was talking about like driving a car, and I just put two together, just practical. I'm trying to buy a car right now. And I have found that suffering or that tension is such an invitation into making this so practical and ordinary. I'm going to use it, it's because that's my learning entry point. That's where it happens for the Isabel to do this. And then also, regardless of the traditions, maybe some of us have come from other meditation protocol techniques and everything. This understanding has knitted together so many other pieces of anything that's come before, what we'll call before this. It clears the clouds. I mean, it's just so helpful. I don't know how else to say it. So the way you've both described it today, it just continues to just make this clearer, more simple, easier. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
It is ordinary. Sid used to say that to us all the time. It's very ordinary. Every human being is a thought away from releasing our grip on our personal thinking, our egos, And in presence, when we rest in presence, deeper feelings begin to emerge and arise. And that knowing is always found there. So he said, what you're looking for will always be found in silence and a beautiful feeling. And that every human being has access to that within themselves, no matter what situation you're in. I couldn't agree more with Natasha about how powerful this training was. We did once a day for 2 hours, a bunch of us shared with 400 people caught up in that war zone. And there were people in bomb shelters. There were people, living in the midst of the worst horrors. And they too, while they were listening, were dropping into this space and experiencing a peace that's very healing. And a connection to a knowing that helps guide you, not in the future, at that very moment would guide them toward whatever was helpful for them at that moment. That's the power of this universal intelligence. There is no downside for any of us having greater access to wisdom at any moment of our lives, but especially when we're having difficulty, which is why they say, in case of a crisis, stay calm. Why do they say that? They don't say, in case of a crisis, think yourself into a frenzy or analyze like crazy. They say, in case of emergency, stay calm, because then you can access the common sense you need that will help you in that difficult situation. So how practical can you get? How practical can you get? And thank God we feel tension, stress, and upset. It invites us to fall open to wisdom, to deeper feeling that heals, that uplifts, to a deeper knowing that guides us. How helpful. Is there anybody else that has anything you'd like to ask us? Anything else you'd like to share? Oh, good, Peter.
Hi. Just something that I've been noticing for the last couple of weeks, because I'm between jobs for the moment. Normal situation for me that have been feel a lot of pressure and stress to getting a new job.
Yes.
But, during a short walk the other day, just close to a small river in this town, floating by, I had just a moment of stillness. The sun was facing me and enjoying the moment, and I didn't realize then it was something about stillness or something that showed up for me. But afterwards, I just reckon, yes, this is what you have been talking about tonight.
Yes, exactly.
And it was just wonderful feeling. And it's something I'd happily will have more of.
Mm-hmm. Peter, that's beautiful. Right? We begin to recognize more and more the power that comes out of. It's really the power of the universe comes through those moments of openness when our consciousness is open. And it's uplifting, and we get more perspective. We see a bigger picture, and we can get new and fresh thoughts and ideas. And it's built into us to do that. So one of the things that Sid Banks would say to us is that the feeling of well-being or the feeling of love that we drop into when we fall completely out of our thinking, that feeling is where we'll find the answer to any problem we have. It's the ultimate answer for every human being, for every problem. That's where you find inspiration, motivation, new and fresh ideas, creativity, hope, guidance. And it's very interesting. Without this understanding, most people, when they have difficulty, the last place they look is in that quiet space within. I used to, all the time, every time I had a problem, I would do 10 times more thinking. I would run into my intellect trying to find answers. The intellect is a beautiful tool, but it's a computer. You won't find wisdom in a computer. You'll find information. You can Google all kinds of cool shit, but you won't find wisdom. You won't find understanding. You won't find love. So if you're in a relationship having a problem, if you get back to the feeling of love, it's amazing. It's unbelievable how different you become, how different you act, how different you think, how you deal with things differently. So Sid would say over and again, love is always, always, always the answer. That's where we find wisdom. That's where we're guided most directly. So thanks, Peter. Those little moments can make a big difference when we're dealing with facing big decisions or big changes. I would go into companies all the time and they called me in because people were having difficulty dealing with a big change that came up. And they got more into their head and more into their thinking, the more insecure they got. And as they began to learn about this, they went the opposite direction. And in that inner quiet, began to find deeper feelings, and then they knew what to do. They could resolve any of those difficulties or problems.
Another question then.
Yes.
Because the experience I have from some organizations I've been working with and in, most of the leadership is focused on the KPIs.
Focused on
KPIs and results, more on the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, we've basically been trained to look outside for our answers. That's understand. I used to do that all the time before I started learning about this. It's very common, of course. That's where people look. Okay. So you show up, you become fully present, you listen, you ask questions, you be concerned with what they're going through, and at some point you'll have an opportunity, and it'll be appropriate to share something with them you think will be helpful. And that's when I start pointing people toward this space of amazing resources. Practical, where people get new and fresh thinking. I could tell business leaders and engineers, our minds are full of potential and possibility. And in our quiet, more of that potential and possibility shows up. We get new and fresh thinking. And that's what we need to deal with any problem or difficulty or situation.
Oh, thank you, Dicken. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, Peter. Dariana.
Yeah, I understand, I think, the 3 Ps, but the thing is, every time I get like this, I think I know how it works. Why don't I get the freshness? Or then I think, oh, you know how it works if you just let it go. And then instead of getting in an easy, nice place, I get even more. So now I'm thinking, what's happening? Let me.
It's what happens to most of us.
Oh, okay.
We start feeling bad, and then
You see how we're both laughing.
yeah. That's normal, Doriana. Don't worry about it. That happens. We get caught up, and then we go, oh, I know better. I know how this works. And then I think what what has helped me so much is that now when that happens, I laugh. I'm like, oh, here we go. And then I know where to go. I know that it will pass. Just knowing that this will pass helps me.
Okay, then I'll think about that it will pass, because now I'm making riddles, you know, and like, okay, you know how it works. They say, just let it go, just, but instead of getting in a good mood, I'm getting lower and lower.
That's right. That's called thinking about your thinking. When I first learned about thought, I thought about thought and thinking all the time, and it got worse.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I realized it's normal to have thought storms, and if you leave them alone, they pass on their own. They always have, they always will. And the less you think about them, the quicker they pass. The more you think about them, the more you do any thinking, the longer it takes for it to pass. So, well, this will pass. I'm having a little thought storm. And you go about your day and it passes.
It always does, but it doesn't. I just wanted to stop it right in that moment, and then.
Yeah. Good luck with that. That's like trying to control the weather. When it's raining out, do you run outside and try and stop it immediately?
Sometimes. No.
And how does that work out?
It doesn't.
I know. We're not trying to teach you how to manage your weather. We're teaching you how to understand it so it can come and go freely, naturally. Look at little kids. Babies have all kinds of experience, but they don't go, oh, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? Okay, I shouldn't be. Well, what do I do about this? They just feel it and are present, and it comes and goes naturally. I still have low moods and get upset, right? But if I know I'm upset, I'm sane. I know it's just a thought storm. I'm not blaming my wife for what I'm feeling. She's very grateful.
That's right. I've got my daughter is 6 years old, and sometimes she comes and she's just sad, and I say, why are you sad? I don't know, I'm just sad. Just hold me. I'm like, okay.
She's your best teacher.
Yeah. Wow. Can you imagine next time you get that way, you go, wow, I don't really know why. I don't have to analyze this or understand it. It's just a natural low mood flowing through me. It'll pass.
It's like when Dicken said before, it's like weather. Like if it's raining, you don't try and manage the rain. You pick up your umbrella and you go out singing in the rain.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not wrong or bad to feel those feelings. It's normal.
Yeah.
They'll come and go naturally.
Yeah, it's about the weather that even if I go outside and I want it to stop, it doesn't. So I take the umbrella.
Yeah.
Or not.
Listen, if you know you're in a low mood and it has to do with your thinking, that in itself puts you 50 years ahead of most people. You're way ahead of most people because now you're not blaming it on the outside. And you're learning how to just write out a thought storm naturally. Because you're always going to have them. Sid Banks had this enlightenment experience. Somebody asked him, Sid, do you still have low moods? And he goes, what? Do you still have low moods? What? It would be like saying, do you still exhale? I know you inhale. Do you still exhale now that you have seen something deep about life? Finally, somebody said to him, Sid, some people think that if you become enlightened, you wouldn't have low moods anymore. You wouldn't have thought storms. You wouldn't have weather. And he goes, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You could say, as your understanding deepens, you get better at riding through when it's raining or snowing or sleeting in your psychological experience. You get better at, and as Natasha says, someday the time may come where you enjoy when it snows or when it rains. You just, yeah, time to be quiet and go on with my life. Go enjoy my daughter, even if I'm in a low mood.
Any experience that we're having that we don't resist can open up and become beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doriana.
You too.
And
How we doing? How we doing for time?
I
It's weird.
think was it for 9 or?
Myself. Let me unmute myself. Yes, we were planning from 8 to 9, but if you are free to carry on and there are questions, you feel free to stay a little bit longer. But if we say it's enough for tonight, for us it's tonight.
Well, we'll do one more question. If someone's been sitting there saying, "Oh, I'd like to ask this," but
please do go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, we'll do this question and we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Dina.
Hello. So what about falling in love? Can you say something about that?
Take it, Natasha.
Our favorite topic.
Our favorite topic. Everything we've been talking about is falling out of thought into love.
Love is who we are.
Mm.
So when we fall in love, we think it has something to do with the other person. It doesn't. It has to do with the fact that when we see the other person, we feel one with them. We see nothing wrong with them. We fall into who we are. Mm-hmm. Love is intimacy. There's not two of us. There is just oneness. So falling in love is not about falling in love with someone. It's about falling into the space of love that we are already. But we're so conditioned to think it has something to do with the other person. And if I think that I'm in love with my husband because of how he is or isn't, then I am all the time a prisoner of his moods, or if he buys me flowers or not. If I know that love is who I am, I can be in love always, no matter what my husband does or what my friend does. It's the most beautiful feeling. And I fall in love with people all the time. Clients, people in the street. Not because of them, but because of the feeling I am in myself. So falling in love is not about someone. It's about falling into who you are.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. Hey, that's a beautiful note to end on, I think. Falling in love is who you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Svea. Thank you, Eileen. And thank you both again for translating our book into Dutch. We really are grateful that you've made it available.
Thank you. So grateful.
Thank you, Natasha and Dicken, for this amazing first session of the 3P Dutch community, Dutch speaking community. Let me phrase it correctly. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for the wisdom you brought to us. It was amazing. Thank you. Next month, I'm finalizing discussions with Marina Galan. She's going, hopefully, and I was just messaging her with her tonight. She'll read at the 17th, and we're still talking about the time. It will probably be the same time.
Be sure not to miss that. Marina has so much heart and so much experience and is doing so much service in the world. And I love listening to her talk. She's a dear friend of Natasha and of mine. So
thank you so much for coming, everyone. Thanks for inviting us, Svea and Eileen.
Thank you very much for being
Thank you
here.
very
We,
Svea, there was a question where if people can watch the video, the recording.
yes, we will put it on the Dutch YouTube channel, which is I'll put it in the Facebook or the Instagram or the LinkedIn pages. You'll will probably find it over there. And as soon as it's finished, of course, because it will take some recording, and we want to have the Dutch translation under it for the Dutch people, because English is, for many people, it's easy, but not for everyone. And we want to.
If you send it to me, the Zoom recording, I will make sure to share it with Dicken and with the Danish community too.
Okay, I will do that. I'll send it to you.
Great.
Don't worry.
All right.
Okay. Wonderful.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.